Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Lucid, and this is the closing chapter of our Lemuria Let's Play. I want to end and kind of have a few closing thoughts for the nation. And for the game. This is going to be, I think, more focused on the nation rather than how the game played out, but I'll talk about a few things. One of the things, and I've said it all throughout the Let's Play, is that Lemuria is a nation of forts, and therefore... and Dominion, but your primary objective is making forts and temples and putting them in an area where you can defend them and not overextending by using too many of your ghosts that other people think, hey, this will be really easy to start claiming some of these forts. So I think that's probably the most important thing, is expanding early so you get a lot of income early and getting key infrastructure up before people organize to attack you. And you usually want it clustered around your capital first. Starting next to the ocean like this is actually not great, because while you are very aquatic and you can go in the ocean, and you definitely want to do that, you care more about having a lot of land that you can expand to, that you can put forts on. And you can't easily put forts on ocean provinces, especially early in the game, because you have to use Living Castle, which is what I use to fortify Ryla's Ocean. So this was not a great start. Ideally, you want to start like somewhere over here, and then once you make contact with the water, you definitely want to send your ghosts in there. But starting next to the water, don't really like it. But yeah, forting them up, I think you usually don't really want to go higher than Fort 2, the second level fort. The palisades are just too easy to crack. If you have excess money, you can go ahead and upgrade it, but you're not going to be getting any like additional income bonus. There's really not much you care about from going to the level 3 fort, except it's a little better wall integrity. Yeah. The other thing too, in terms of infrastructure, if you build labs, you do get these guys as free spawn, and you get kind of a lot. I forget, I did the math before, but you can figure out, okay, these guys take, what are they called? What are they, Acolytes? Yeah, they are, okay. So, Acolytes are like 11 gems, death gems, and if you build a lab, I think you get like 2 to 3 of them a year. I can't remember. I tested it, it's something like that. It's not like you get 10 of them a year. I think it's like you get 3 a year, which, if you think about it, is about 3 death gems a turn. And if you have magic, they're decent researchers, right? So building labs is a good thing, but I think it is a secondary objective to getting forts and temples. I think forts and temples, especially early, are like your first objective. And then after that, if you have extra money, like from raiding, then you want to put labs up. The time when you don't want to build forts and temples are if like there's a lot of aggression on the front and you're worried that fort may get knocked down before it gets built. Or if it's for whatever reason you don't think you can defend it, then it's probably better to go ahead and put labs and forts that you have. So I think that's probably actually the most important thing about Lemuria, is getting your infrastructure up quickly through efficient expansion early. And then keeping a lot of ghosts inside your fort so that people don't want to sit on top of it and try to siege it down. And it's not like if you have 100 ghosts inside your fort, they're going to spawn any less quickly. So you just have to kind of wait till you have a critical mass, and then you can take some of them out, but leave some of them behind so you don't get attacked. Now that said, a way to think about your ghosts is they are income generators for you, because you can use them to attack other people's lands, which will give you income, whereas your lands in general give you none. So that is something to balance. You have to balance when do you attack versus, and thereby generate income, versus when do you keep a retinue of troops inside your forts, which prevents you from losing lost income. And how you balance that's going to change at different points in the game based on what research you have and who your allies are and all of that business. So that is that. One of the things that I think there's a few major paths you have to pick when you go down research, and it will depend a little bit on your bless build. Like if you have a thug build, it's a much higher priority to go down construction and to go potentially down alteration, so that you get things like Soul Vortex. Grand Lemurs can be very, very scary with a thug build. A Grand Lemur with the right items on an army that is not planning on doing Magic Duel, it can kill the whole army. And you didn't really see me doing that because, well, versus Death Communions, it's not going to work. So it's kind of situational when it works, but for certain types of armies, you can kind of one-hit kill them with the teleporting Grand Lemur. So that's one thing you didn't see me do much of. But if you have different opponents, it totally can work. Like you're fighting Abyssia, you're not worried maybe about Leech and stuff like that. You can totally make a Grand Lemur that can kill a whole army if he has a lot of fire resistance. So anyway, something to think about. If you're going the Thug path, your research things will change. I went for like an early Rigor Mortis, and no, okay, I can't remember whether I did Rigor Mortis first. I know I beelined it up Evocation pretty quickly to get Wind of Death, and that was... Wait, where the hell is Wind of Death? Is it an enchantment? Oh man, major brain fart. Okay, there it is. I've like been staring at it the whole time. You guys are probably like, what is this guy doing? Anyway, I went up this to get Shadow Blast and Wind of Death. Honestly, looking back on it, these were not super impactful. I think just the threat of it, though, probably made people not want to commit super large armies to attacking me. But I don't know if this was really the best use. I think the things that made a bigger impact were things like Rigor Mortis and Darkness. Darkness was pretty solid this game. A lot of the people I was fighting had demons or something like that, so they had some kind of dark vision. So it wasn't awesome. But anyway, those were pretty good. I think the most important thing with any free spawn nation is having good access to buffs. It's important with every nation, but things like really worked out for me once we had things like Mass Protection up, and then especially Army of Lead and Gold. It wasn't as impactful as it would have been if my army didn't, or if my enemies didn't have access to tons of Wither Bones, which is armor negating and doesn't care about this. But these were pretty important. One thing I did not make nearly good enough use of, and I think it's something that if you're playing Lemuria should absolutely be ubiquitous from the mid-game onwards, is Mass Flight. In general, you're very good against troops, but you're weak against mages, and the best way to get back to those squishy mages is with Mass Flight. Yeah, it should be just completely ubiquitous. The problem I had in getting at this game was Astral Corruption was up, and I then have two ways to do it. One is with... and I think I got one Fairy Queen, so if you get all the way up to Conjuration, you can do Fairy Court, and this will give you access to it. The second way to do it is through doing communions with your air random Grand Lemurs. I don't have any on hand right now at the moment, but your air random Grand Lemurs, you can do communions, but if you think about it, the only Astral Mages you have by default are your Grand Lemurs, so unless you run into Shamans or something like that, they're going to be pretty expensive communions. And yeah, so I think let's figure out how many communion slaves you will need to have to do this. It's 2 gems and air 4 to cast, so you need to be at least air 3. So if you start with air 1, you have 2 communion slaves, that gets you up to air 2. You cast Power of the Spheres, that gets you up to air 3. You can then cast Mass Flight. So in theory, you can do it with just 3 Grand Lemurs, which is 150 Death Gem investment. And I probably should have been doing more of that. But I was spread in so many directions, I kind of didn't. But I think that would have been a better thing for me to do. And I probably could have improved on that. So that's the second option for Mass Flight, and this is such an important spell for this nation. The final option for it And this was something I only started doing at the end of the game, and I didn't even really talk about it that much because I kind of knew it wouldn't impact things, is Tartarean Gate. And I kind of built this into my Blessed with Recuperation, but then I really delayed running up Conjuration. I got Well of Misery kind of early. I didn't go all the way to Tartarean Gate. I probably should have. Tartarians are a great way to increase your magic diversity, and if you have Recuperation in your Bless, you don't have to worry about fighting over Gift of Health or anything like that. So this was a super nice pickup. I think I really do like the Recuperation Bless on Lemuria. It was one of the things when I picked it, I wasn't sure if I would like it or not, because it's a little bit redundant with the recuperation you get just from dying as an immortal. But I think if I play again as Lemuria, this would be a higher priority in my research. So anyway, that's important. I think Mass Flight, that's a super important thing that I did not do enough of, that I needed to do. Another thing you can do is casting, where is it? I think it's in Thaumaturgy. Plague, which is, no, not Plague. Plague actually you can use. If anybody has a video of somebody successfully using Plague, put it up, because I've heard it can just kill entire armies, but I've never used it effectively. I've tried it a few times. It's short range. You also have to get through magic resistance. I haven't really gotten it to work. But anyway, I've heard it's awesome, but if anybody has a video of it working, or even if you have a turn file where you wipe out an army, comment and I can give you some place to send it, and maybe I'll put it up or something. But Leprosy is interesting. This is a remote spell that you can cast, and it will give disease to everybody. So if your opponent is doom stacking up, you can kind of spam this out. So it's a kind of interesting way to very slowly kill armies. Bane Venom Charming I started doing later, and I think that's probably the right attitude. I think it's like, if you're fighting a two-front war, you can Bane Venom Charm one person you don't think you're going to win on invading, where you just want to stall, and you maybe just say, I'll stop Bane Venom Charming you if you stop attacking me. But on the person you're going to conquer, I don't know if you're going to want to Bane Venom Charm until later, when you don't really care about the income they're going to throw off. Like with Utgard, I did not mind Bane Venom Charming him, because I didn't really care about getting income in his capital. Because if I killed Utgard in his capital, I'd already won the game. But anyway, I think they are something that can be used to good effect. I probably didn't do it enough. What else in terms of research? I had High Astral on my Pretender. I was thinking about doing Arcane Nexus or something like that. I never really got to that, especially with Astral Corruption up. I also think I should have done this differently. I ended up using her. I empowered her in water, which was kind of useful for being able to do foul vapors and stuff. I should have avoided her getting all these horror marks. She was far too useful with very high paths for me to kind of waste her on getting super horror marked. What I should have done for all of the water casting is probably get an Ivy King, which is up in Conjuration, and given him a Ring of Returning, and he could walk himself into the water and cast. I could empower him, and he could cast it, and he would have enough HP, I think, to survive a horror attack and get teleported with Ring of Returning back. So I probably should have done that. But, again, time is of the essence, and when I decided to attack Ryla, I didn't have, I don't think, all that researched, and so I wasn't going to keep it from Ryla very long if I didn't fort it up. So, hard to say. This was super valuable, having all this lakeside forted up and generating undead. It gave me great access to kind of raid Lemuria and to keep a hold of this whole island chain, and all this, it made a lot of gems. Ryla did a good job site searching. So that was definitely a nice pickup after I took Calum. So I think those are kind of my closing thoughts for the game. I think Ryla was probably... Midgard and Utgard had nations that I think could fight me and win. I think Ryla's nation is just completely countered by Lemuria. I mean, there are some things he could have done more of, like Solar Brilliance, and, if he had Solar Brilliance up and Army of Lead and the battle went on long enough, maybe he could have won, but... I don't know. Ryla's a really tough matchup. All the good things that LA Ryla has going for it, which a lot of it is that the kind of spectral assassin unit they have. I forget the name, but it just doesn't even work on Lemuria. So there is that. Calum was a very good, strong matchup against me early, but once I got a few key things researched, it was no longer a good matchup. Midgard was a great matchup against me, as was Utgard. Utgard, I think, is probably one of the best Lemuria killers. Yeah. One of the things nobody did that I think would have been really good was they could have used Flames from the Sky against me. That would have been pretty good for important battles. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing was Midgard attacked me too late. I think if they attacked me early, it would have saved a lot of Utgard, so it could have potentially been this alternate reality where I was very small and was angry at both of them, but they were both big, and then they were then fighting each other. So I think he was trying to time it just right where I had, like, mortally wounded Utgard, but he was going to step in, and he was strong enough from building his power all those many turns that he could just wipe me out. And I think he probably would have attacked me then, but that was about the time I was scrambling to put up Vengeful Waters. Vengeful Waters, in many ways, saved the game for me. When you saw Midgard attack me, he was not attacking me with a full mage core. He was attacking me with, like, probably at least half the mages that he would have attacked with. And if he had a full mage core, especially like a ton of astral mages, he would have, I'm sure, killed my thugs like Itimu. So it was really kind of like a game-changing spell. It also just delayed when Midgard attacked me, so it allowed me to go past the point where Utgard was kind of mortally wounded and actually eat Utgard before the Midgard War began. So getting Vengeful Waters up was super critical, and if you recall, I had to basically sacrifice almost all my gems. I alchemized almost everything, and I had an overcast of like 420. One thing I didn't talk about in the game was that, because I didn't really find out until after, was that Midgard did try to dispel Vengeful Waters twice. I think he used a small amount of gems the first time. The second time, I think it was the second time, he may have only tried once. I think he put 400 gems into dispelling it, so he just barely didn't make it by like 20 gems. And that is another alternate universe that could have played out, where if he dispelled Vengeful Waters, would he have won? And there's a chance he might have, but as you see at the end, I had a ton of water gems, so I would totally try to recast it. And I would be alchemizing all of this to put it back up, and I don't think he would be able to dispel it a second time. So I don't think that would have ended up working out for him, but it could have. Totally could have. And, you know, with Astral Corruption up, it's always possible that when I try to put it up again, that the horror could one-hit kill my Queen of the Sea if I get a bad Doom horror. So I think that's it. Those are my closing thoughts on the game. If you'll put in the comments what your closing thoughts were in terms of, you know, the matchup, or things I could have done better, or things that my opponents could have done better, I think I would enjoy reading that. So please do that. Now I'm going to switch over to talking about different Pretender builds. And I probably did a little bit of this at the beginning, but I like to do it again in an after-action review. This was my my Lich Queen that I used, Octavia. And basically the thought with her was she can do very, very strong Wind of Death spam. Very, very strong, because she can her death is so high that she can cast it for reasonably low fatigue without even buffing up. So if they have a big army and they're trying to like cap rush me, she can kill half the army with Wind of Death potentially. I didn't end up using this to great effect. Part of it was because people didn't really rush me with huge armies. It was usually me attacking them. And when I'm attacking them, usually you don't get... because they can defend a fort with far fewer forces than they can take a fort from me. Usually it was lower commitment attacks where Wind of Death isn't as good. So if you're on the offensive, Wind of Death isn't as good. Wind of Death is more like a defense. So in some ways it was a value that I got that I never really got to see in the game, because I didn't need to cast it that much on big armies that were attacking me. Anyway, we've got Minor Magic Resistance, Arcane Finesse. I think this was kind of okay. It's probably hard to calculate how much this helped. because almost everything in Astral and Death is MR negates. So all the Nether Darts that went out, there's an MR negates component. I think Drain Life is not MR negates, but that's like the only thing. Soul Slay, Enslave Mind. You know, when I got Belphegor, yeah, you know, wouldn't have had that maybe if I didn't have that Arcane Finesse. Hard to say. Not sure I would pick it again. I did a second version of Octavia, which is pretty similar. I think I took one more death, and this allows you to cast, and I didn't, oh no, I still have air. It allows me to cast Undead Mastery a little stronger, and it makes Tartarean Gate a little easier to cast. Well, no, you can already cast it with the other one. So, really, I think it's just Wind of Death you can cast more times. So I don't know. I don't really think that's an improvement. I'm going to go through a few of them. This, I think, is probably the one I would take. Getting a Rainbow Pretender on Lemuria, especially if you have Death, you can Twiceborn, and this gives you some mileage out of them. Now, they're not immortal, but you're going to make up for a lot of the magic diversity weaknesses you have with this guy, and it's going to give you a very strong Thug Bless. So I picked up Recuperation, and it kind of works with this chassis because this is going to be my highest magic path. Undead Command, it allows for a little more efficient shuffling around of troops. You could potentially bump this up a little more, maybe sacrifice something somewhere else, and get Reforming Flesh or something like that. Then we have Magic Resistance. I didn't pick I still have a leftover Astral point to spend, I think. Reinvigoration, kind of nice on your mages. Mountain Survival. You could probably get something different here too. Like maybe it's even worth getting this up to 5 and then getting double. I think they stack, I'm not sure. Another Fire Shock Resistance. Or you could maybe even get Unbreakable. But then we're getting less into like a Rainbow and more into kind of a Thug Bless. But these are okay. Mountain Survival is not bad. Maybe it is. I think because you have floating, I can't remember if you can go over mountains anyway. But defense, kind of nice. The shock and fire resistance, I think, are really good. I think they make you I think you really do want a bless that has fire and shock resistance. I also really stand behind Recuperation now. I mean, Atimu would have been all afflicted to hell if we didn't have that. So would Octavia. So, and then it also opened up Tartarians, which I didn't make great use of, but which I think were good to have. Could have been a big part of my strategy. Getting into like more Thug Blesses, here's Hades. Kind of cool chassis. He can do assassinations, which are very, very strong. He's invisible too, which means he's very difficult to patrol out. So if you're getting attacked by like super combatant-y type people, this guy can potentially go and kill them as via assassination. Also, probably pretty difficult to siege down a fort with this guy hiding inside of it, killing your commanders. So definitely something to consider. But anyway, we've basically got Fortitude, which is going to cut your damage in half, and then Reforming Flesh. Quite good on... It'll make even like your little 1 PD kind of hard to kill, because they're going to take half damage. They're already ethereal, and they're going to be regenerating. So, yeah, pretty solid. And then Fire Resistance, though you could probably pick something different for your third path. If there's a lot of air magic, you might want to get Shock Resistance, but I think, it's kind of your pick there. There's other blesses you can do. I think I've talked about these in the Pretender design portion of this game, but I'll just kind of go over them real quickly. And then I'll kind of give closing thoughts on the Pretender design. But definitely a combo you would want to consider would be... let's see. Statue of War. We'll go with this guy. Awe is pretty good. There's a few things you get that are interesting with Awe and Reforming Flesh, which I think is a really good combo on this nation. One of the things is your guys are just great thugs out of the box. Even your PD with just the one Spectral Mage gets pretty hard to kill with Awe and Reforming Flesh. Yeah. So very, very strong out of the box. Your Centurions get very, very tough. And then your Grand Lemurs with On Reforming Flesh are so hard to kill. Especially if you do up something like Astral Shield and then Invulnerability. They're going to be very, very hard to kill if you put armor on them. So, yeah, pretty good. The only thing this doesn't really have is a lot of resistances. So you may want to go, if you, and I'm not sure which chassis you would pick, but if you throw in a little bit of Earth and you can get the Fire Shock resistance, you would have some truly fearsome thugs. And this very well may be the better way to play Lemuria with these three. You'd have, we'll just test right now whether you could get this, but you probably could get away with Dormant. Your scales matter some for how much free spawn you get. And then you want these positive. Yeah, so you could totally get away with this. You're not really going to be using the thug part until the end of the first year, so you could get away with Dormant. You can just expand with your troops, and 7 Dominion is enough to kind of get going. So like this, I think, would be a stronger build than the one I had. Now, there's some gaps in it, like, you know, you're going to have to probably fight over Gift of Health. You don't have great nature access, so it's not really clear how you'd ever use Tartarians. So that option you're kind of shut out of. But I think it makes up for it. I think it's far more difficult for somebody to counter, okay, am I going to be fighting 300 ghosts or a Grand Lemur that has Fire Shock resistance on Reforming Flesh? Or, you know, a console with tons of gear on them. So, anyway, I think this is a very strong build. If you watch my my Let's Play with LA Alm, the Lemuria we fight in there ends up using something like this, and I think it's a stronger build than the one I had. So I think that's it. Yeah, I think Lemuria is a very strong nation. I think they do go through like a period where they're kind of weak in the early middle game, and even in the mid game. But in the late mid game, once they start getting a few key spells, they can be very, very difficult to deal with. So I think you want to avoid fighting them very early, like make friendly with them if they're in your game. You know, the first year and a half. But come around turn 20, when you've got a few of your key things researched, you don't want to attack them alone, but you definitely want to form a coalition and push them out of the game. So with that, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the series. I'm glad that I finally finished it. So hooray for me. And anyway, I hope to see you next time. Cheers.